Hello, everyone, and happy holidays. Thanks for joining us for Access City Council. I'm your host, City of Las Vegas Communications Director David Riggleman. The City of Las Vegas recently welcomed 2 new deputy city managers to the team. They're tackling a number of issues and projects. Today, we'll introduce you to one of them. But first, we welcome back to the show Councilwoman Nancy Brune. She represents Ward 6. Welcome. Happy holidays.
Hi, good morning, David. Happy holidays to you, too. Good to be back.
It is hard to believe this is your last show of 2023.
Yeah.
So we're going to make it a good one.
Office just over a year.
Exactly. 1 year, almost to the
Time
day.
flies,
Exactly. Well, we're going to talk about a variety of issues today. We have a special guest. Before we get to that, though, if you're not exactly sure where Ward 6 is located, well, don't worry. Councilwoman knows it really well, but we're going to show you on the map. It's, of course, the top of our valley. Right there with the Big 6, appropriately enough. It's the Great Northwest. A lot of growth out there, Councilwoman. A lot of activity still happening. Our city keeps growing and growing, and you're getting a lot of that growth right in your ward.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Well, with that growth come a variety of issues, and that's a perfect segue into introducing our guest. Today we have a very special guest joining Councilwoman Brune and me. We're pleased to welcome Sabra Newby to the program. She's one of our new deputy city managers at the City of Las Vegas. Sabra, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here. Councilwoman, Sabra might be a newbie, sorry, Sabra, currently, but really, Sabra, you've worked here for the city. This is your second stint with the City of Las Vegas, so you're not completely unfamiliar with the organization.
That's true, David. I'm a native Las Vegan and spent over 20 years in state and local government, and actually my first job in local government was with the City of Las Vegas in the early 2000s. So
remind everybody where you worked. What was your position back in the day?
So back in the day, I was hired as a senior management analyst, and my responsibility was actually over homeless policy.
Now it's funny, Councilwoman, because things come full circle. Because one of the departments that she oversees is neighborhood services, which deals with homelessness, and that's one of your top priorities. Is like, we've got to get a handle on this situation.
Yes.
It's been a tough one. It's a tough issue to wrangle and to show signs of improvement in.
Yeah. Well, I will say I met Sabra probably when I first moved to Las Vegas. I was on a Clark County commission, and Sabra was working at the county at the time, and she helped staff that commission. And I was so impressed with just her work then and her focus, and so it's excited to have her back in the city and be working with her in a different capacity. And I'm excited because, as you just mentioned, one of my priorities is housing and the unhoused, and so it's great that Sabra will be overseeing that. And I know, I think we know from the point in time count that homelessness, the numbers here are higher, I think, than they've ever been. And we're downtown. If you work downtown or come play down here, right, you see the encampments, you see the homeless. It's not new, but I think because the issue of the unhoused has grown so much, we see it more in Ward 6. So I'm getting a lot of folks calling my office saying, what are we doing? So I'm really excited to have Sabra here to just share, because people in Ward 6 don't realize we've been working on this. We've got a lot of programs, so hopefully they'll realize. And I want our neighbors to know too, when they see an encampment out in Ward 6 or someone, like, what should they be doing? What number should they be calling? So
it's very well said. Homelessness, I think people had the impression for years it was just a downtown kind of issue, but boy, certainly not. You see the unhoused all across the valley now. Ward 6, Ward 4, Ward 2, areas in the past that you never saw it. So, Sabra, you're going to have your work cut out for you, no question. Sabra, in your years, you touched on this a little bit. You started as a management analyst at the city, but then through your career have advanced, touched a lot of issues. Talk about that a little bit, kind of where you went with some of your stops before coming back to the city. We roped you back in here.
So I left the city in 2006 and went over to the county, was there for about 10 years in various roles, which is when I met Councilwoman Brune. I was Director of Intergovernmental Relations, Director of Administrative Services, and ultimately Assistant County Manager. I left Clark County for the city of Reno, actually, and was City Manager of the city of Reno for about 3 years before deciding to come back home And I was most recently, as you mentioned earlier, at UNLV as the Vice President of Government and Community Engagement. So, but I'm back here now at the City of Las Vegas. It all comes full circle for me, back to the city and back to the issue surrounding homelessness, which is really difficult.
Exactly. Sabra, real quick, just set everybody up. Councilwoman and I are obviously very familiar, but the departments that you oversee, let's talk about that one more time. Touch on those, and then we'll move into the issue of homelessness and affordable housing too.
Sure. I have responsibility over the departments that serve kind of our social safety net. So those are neighborhood services, youth development, and social initiatives. I also have government affairs, and then I'm also the liaison for the Mayor's Fund, which is a separate nonprofit.
Right. Raises money for projects that the city can't solicit for, but the private sector can help fund where there's a need in the community. So
Exactly.
So, Councilwoman, obviously, we've talked about this and touched on it. Neighborhood Services, the department that touches housing, and we've talked about the issue of homelessness, but also we have the issue in the community of affordable housing, where people can afford to buy a home. Maybe they've got a good entry-level job. Maybe they're an entry-level teacher, perhaps a police officer, firefighter. But right now, it's very, very difficult to find a place that you can afford to live in on that wage.
Yeah, and that's why we're actually calling it workforce housing, because with rents increasing and wages having kept up, you do find some of our healthcare workers, folks that are taking care of our parents who cannot afford to live in sort of sort of your typical apartment or rental home. And so we're really trying to build housing for our workers, especially as we're trying to attract companies here. Companies are saying, well, where are my workers going to live? And so it's a real focus on workforce housing.
Sabra, what can we do to help along those? I know we've got some initiatives that are underway, but what are some of the things that we're doing to try to help folks find a place to live that meets their income?
Well, some of the tools that the city uses are in affordable housing or workforce housing. We are able to access BLM land and have federal funds to help in the development of new units. And so in those cases, some of those are larger developments, maybe 200 units or more. We currently have one planned, I believe, in Ward 6
I was just going to say that.
senior housing, senior housing out there. And then we also do what we call scattered site, so individual home development for that purpose. But adding new units isn't the only strategy. We also need to keep the units that we have. So we've been working with our regional partners to ensure that some of the affordable units that we already have stay affordable. Oftentimes when they're developed, they utilize federal funds that have a period of affordability for them. And the problem is at the end of that period of affordability, they're no longer required to be affordable. So we're working with our regional partners to identify those properties and to make sure that they remain affordable. And then
That's really important.
Absolutely. You don't want to lose ground while you're trying to gain ground, obviously. And another strategy is through our SHIFT program, and that really tries to keep people in their houses. Sometimes, a homeowner may have a code enforcement violation or some sort of issue with their home, but they can't afford to fix that problem. The SHIFT program for certain owners that are income qualified can come in and help those owners with those problems and maybe address whatever code enforcement issue there is so that they can stay in their homes and not be ejected. Yeah.
Sabra, talk a little bit about, you hear people say, I'm afraid we're turning into California where things are so expensive and the cost of living rises to where residents are having a hard time finding places to live, just making ends meet. Is that a fair assessment? Do either of you think, is that happening here in Southern Nevada to that extent?
Well, I would say that Nevada reflects the national trends that we're seeing, right? I think there's national data showing that wages haven't kept up with the cost of living, and we know as well that right now there's incredible inflationary pressure. And so, your groceries have doubled, or just buying things have, the prices increased, 20, 30% in some items over the last few years. And so the dollar, wages just aren't going as far to help families.
So not necessarily a California, Nevada thing.
Yeah, I don't think it is, but I don't know if you have any insights. I mean, I see on Nextdoor all the time neighbors just saying, like, my rent's just increased $300, but I'm still making the same, and so this month I had to pay rent, and so I can't afford Christmas presents, and so really asking for or accessing our social safety net more than they have previously.
Yeah. What you thought of that, Sabra?
I agree. It is a national trend, and you're seeing this in a lot of different places. I think Southern Nevada is still more affordable than a lot of places, and we don't have some of the barriers that other places do in terms of access to workers, to construction and trades that can make it difficult. Really high prices in terms of development, and a lot of the barriers that some of the other jurisdictions have in terms of creating new units.
Right. They have a shortage of people who can build those projects, so that drives the price up even more.
Exactly.
To your point. Sabra, let's shift back to homelessness, and to Councilwoman's point, the last count we had, the numbers are higher than ever. Talk a little bit about what we're doing as an organization, what we're doing as a region to try to bring that more under control, and to try to get more people into housing, into the workforce again.
Well, and to the Councilwoman's point, I think our citizens are seeing more encampments and more folks more visible out in the community. And so the city has what we call the MORE teams. We have 5 of them in existence right now. And MORE stands for Multi-Agency Outreach Resource Engagement. And so those teams are really made up of very caring individuals from a variety of backgrounds that go out and interact with houseless individuals and try and get them assistance and try and get them connected to services. So if a citizen does see an encampment or has some concerns, they really should call the MORE team. That number is 702-229-MORE, M-O-R-E. The numbers related to MORE are 6673. So 229-6673 or more.
Very good.
So those folks will respond and go out to the encampment and interact with the houseless individuals, offer them assistance when they do. Oftentimes it takes multiple times in interacting with a houseless individual to get them to accept assistance or casework or counseling, but they are persistent and they do make multiple contacts with these folks. They also can offer them resources right there on the spot, whether that's a pair of clean socks or water or sanitary items, in addition to actually physically helping them get into housing, meaning getting into the van and getting them to a place where they're safe.
And I'll just add, if you can't remember the MORE team, our neighbors out in Ward 6 can just call our office, which they've done previously, and we will call the MORE team for them once they share their location. So, yeah.
We'll have, of course, that Councilwoman's contact information before the end of the show, as always. That's a good point. Can't remember all of that. Just remember Councilwoman Brune's office, and we'll get you in touch with the MORE team. Sabra, how are we doing with the MORE teams? What's their level of success? Are they having some good successes getting people to transition from the street into something more permanent?
They are. I think for those individuals who really want to take the services and want to engage, they are incredibly helpful and incredibly successful. The issue is really trying to convince folks to trust the MORE team, and that's where, like I said, the multiple interactions and building that trust really comes into play. And they are very sophisticated in their methods. They have their tablets. They are able to access the HMIS system, which is the Homeless Management Information System. So they can call up, records on the individuals right there in the field and see what they've accessed before and how best to get them connected with housing.
Yeah, and I think, Sabra, talk a little bit about, I think one of the things that's really interesting is that there's a safety net. Once people get into the program, there's kind of steps to where that we don't just say, okay, well, everything's better, just go live in an apartment, you're all set now.
Right.
There are steps to help people transition, where there's support if they have a substance abuse problem, to Councilwoman's point, where they'll get some opportunity to have access to counseling, so they're not just put in an apartment by themselves and said, well, we wish you the best.
Right.
There are people and counselors around them to help them make that step to where they can stay off of whatever substance they're on, and then transition later on into more permanent housing where they are on their own. But there's steps involved.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to add too, we had a presentation at the City Council last week on neighborhood services, and one of the things our team members shared is that we do have some funds available. Like it's cheaper and better to try to keep people in their homes as opposed to trying to help them once they become unhoused. And so we do have some funds, and we're trying to put more into sort of a kitty where, if you're facing, if you need just help this month paying your utility bill, or maybe rent this month, right, because you lost your job and you're transitioning, or there's a gap in your paycheck, please call our office, because hopefully we can provide one-time funds to keep you housed, so that you don't have to go into the system, because it's a lot harder to get you housed again once you're in that unhoused
That is such a great
situation.
point, Councilwoman. That is such a great point.
So please call.
Yeah, because there is help available, and that might stem you from having to move out onto the street or to lose your housing. We can tide you over until maybe your job situation evens out a little bit.
Yeah.
Sabra, we've got about 5 minutes left to have you on. Talk a little bit about maybe youth development, social innovation. That's another key department that you have, where the city, we're not trying to be the school district, but we certainly assist with a lot of the various programs, after school, before school, winter camps, etc. Talk a little bit about what we do in that area that can help people that maybe are looking for some assistance if they've got some young ones trying to get through school right now.
Absolutely. The Youth Development and Social Initiatives Department has a number of different programs. One of our most successful is the Strong Start Go preschools. And so we actually take buses that are outfitted as a little preschool and bring them into the community. And so they serve that demographic of kids that aren't yet ready to go off to school, but really need that strong start. And so there's typically financial support for that. And so oftentimes parents don't pay anything for it. They can certainly contact Councilwoman Brune's office to get connected if they're interested in that.
Yeah, that's really important. Sabra, education being so key. These two here have interesting educational backgrounds. Sabra has gone to Wellesley and a little school called Harvard, and Councilwoman has been to a little school called Yale and Harvard. Both of them have degrees from those universities. Education, obviously, very key to the success that both of you have had. And I think, Sabra, to your point, Councilwoman, what we're trying to do is give every child at that early age especially that opportunity to unlock that door, whether they're going to end up going to Harvard or Yale, who's to say, but that might open the door for all kinds of other opportunities, regardless of whatever field they go into.
Well, and I'll add that early childhood education is a really strong predictor of how likely a kid is to graduate or meet all those benchmarks. And sort of consistently, Nevada scores poorly on those national rankings because we have a pretty low percentage of kids who are 3 years and 4 years old in early childhood programs. So the minimal funds that the city is dedicating to these Strong Start Go mobiles is really, really important for improving the overall education
those kids,
attainment.
That head start.
I'm really proud the city's taken the leadership role in this.
Me too. Sabra, if people are interested, it's like, hey, that sounds great. I've got a young one at home, 2 or 3 years old. How do I get my child involved in Strong Start Go? How do they get connected?
Well, they can call the city and ask for the Youth Development and Social Initiatives Department, or they can, of course,
call the councilwoman. We'll hook you up.
Contact the councilwoman.
Or call you, put yourself out there.
And to your point, we're not trying to replace the school district.
No.
We're really just trying to, as Councilwoman Brune said, augment those things that we can do that we know that are helpful, like after school education and early childhood education.
All right. Well, Sabra, we have just a couple minutes left. Anything else you'd like to add about the work that you're doing here at the city? Something that I haven't had the chance to get to, but we're going to give you an opportunity now.
Well, I know one thing that is near and dear to Councilwoman Brune is grants and the city really pursuing grants. And so we do have a grants administration team, which is very small but mighty, and they're really looking to streamline the internal processes for applying for grants, but also disseminate information on what grants are available.
Right.
And since their inception in 2022, they've really been successful with over 100 grants that we've received. Nearly 70 of those were competitive grants.
That's
so,
terrific.
So we're really trying to beef up our efforts in that area because we all know that Nevada traditionally has not fared well in federal grants.
Yeah, I think we rank like 45th in the country in federal grants per capita, and we're really pretty far behind when you look at other cities, sort of peer cities around the country. But I would agree, we've got a great team in place, and they're just they've got fire in the belly, and are really doing a great job.
We're going to change
going
that
after these
ranking.
grants.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
What I love is both of you love data. You both base a lot of your decisions on the data at hand. And Councilman, we have just a couple minutes left. Talk a little bit about that. I think I appreciate that because we're not just kind of spitballing at the wall. You look at the data, and that helps guide the decisions. And both of you really delve into that and use that in your decision making, don't you?
Well, I think too, being a public servant, we're very aware that we are using taxpayer dollars. We want to make sure that we can go back to the public and say, hey, we're investing money in this particular program, and by looking at the data, we can show that this program is actually moving the needle and helping our youngsters or helping the unhoused. And so it's really important that we are using the resource. We're being good stewards of the resources that our citizens have given to us.
Well, you've got a cohort in crime here when it comes to that, because Sabra, I know, is very much the same. But again, I think that makes good decisions when you have the facts behind it. You're not just guessing. You're making conscious decisions based on the information, the strong information that you have. So, Sabra Newby, a pleasure to have you on the program. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Best of luck.
Thank you for the invitation.
In the new job. Happy holidays to you and the family.
Thank you.
We're going to take a little short break here, Councilwoman, but when we come back, Councilwoman Brune are going to tell you about some upcoming events that she has in Ward 6 that you don't want to miss. It's right after this. Thanks, everybody. Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our discussion with Councilwoman Nancy Brune. Councilwoman, you have some events coming up. The next Bocaditos with Brune is coming up in January 2024.
Yes,
it's like, oh my goodness.
We always gather the second Thursday of the month, so January 11th from 8:30 to 10:30 at our satellite office at the Centennial Hills Y.
People come out, it's very informal. It's an opportunity to talk with you about issues, just introduce themselves, get to know you a little bit over coffee and snacks.
Great, very fun.
Okay. So January 11th is the next one. And then, Councilwoman, I heard through the grapevine that you have a pickleball tournament coming sometime in February.
Yeah, so we're partnering with Ward 4 Councilman Francis Allen Polensky, and we've both opened up some new pickleball courts in our wards, and so we decided to band together and sponsor a pickleball tournament for families. We want to use pickleball to bring generations together, and so we're encouraging grandparents to play with their grandkids. It'll be a little friendly competition.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So we'll have more information about how to sign up in January.
Perfect. Yeah, so everybody stay tuned for that. That'll be a lot of fun. Pickleball is multi-generational.
It is.
From youth to people who are my age to get out there and play and do well. So
it's amazing.
Good stuff. Well, Councilwoman, as I mentioned, this is your last show of 2023. That is hard to believe. And then we're
It's
moving
gone by
on.
so quickly. We've had some great guests and conversations.
We have on this
David.
program.
So
We sure have.
thank you for always entertaining my crazy
No, they've been
ideas.
great. We've had great topics, really important topics, like the one today dealing with homelessness, affordable housing. It's been that way the whole year. Been in office a whole year now. Impressions. You've hit the ground running. You've been very busy in that first year.
I love it, and I actually we get a lot of calls about traffic safety issues or pedestrian issues or something with the streets. And I will say, you know, I really, first of all, our team is amazing at the city. So when I share with them a concern that the resident has in Ward 6, the city team gets back to me within 48 hours to update me. And then I share that with the resident. And it's clear that the residents really appreciate that timely response. And I love being able to do that because it makes me feel like they believe in government. They believe in the fact that local government is working for them and being really responsive. And so I think that's a win-win for everyone because a lot of times people get frustrated when they feel like no one is listening.
Very much so.
That is my favorite part of the job. So I encourage people, please sign up for our newsletter. Please call our office because we truly do want to respond and address your concern. And it's really the city who's doing all of the hard work. I'm just relaying the information.
Well, you represent your residents, though, and you're the conduit to helping them get their problems solved. So well, you've been working very hard. Your first year, you're a fast learner. Needless to say, maybe it's that Harvard and Yale, those Harvard and Yale degrees. But I
ask a lot of questions. I think I've driven the staff crazy.
No, but I think for someone who's quote unquote new to the job, you've really taken the ball and run. And so kudos to you. And want to wish you a happy holiday. I can't believe we're wrapping up your first year and obviously wrapping up 2023. But I guess I'll see you in 2024 on this show.
Yes, God willing. Yes, yes. And happy holidays to all the residents of Ward 6. If you celebrate Kwanzaa or Hanukkah, please have very safe holiday. Drive safely out there. I did notice last week at the city council meeting that December is National Impaired Driving Awareness Month.
Please don't do that,
We
folks.
already have over 200 fatalities this year. So please, you know, if you've enjoyed your glass of wine or gone out to a holiday party, please think about using an alternate transportation office opportunity. We've got Lyft and Uber or friend, family member. Please call.
Don't get behind the wheel, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
well
we
said,
saw with the
Councilwoman.
tragic accident last week where we lost 2 of our Nevada state troopers.
Terrible. So don't want to have that happen. The holidays, we don't need anything like that to mar them. So very well said. So will you be safe yourself? And again, I'll see you in 2024 right here on this show. In the meantime, everyone, we always want to hear from you. So if there's something you'd like to share with Councilwoman Brune, you can find her on Facebook and Twitter. You can also contact her at 702-229-6405. There's that number we talked about. So remember it.
Please call.
Call if you've got any questions, 702-229-6405. She has a great staff. They will get right back to you and answer any questions. Even if it's not a city issue, we'll connect you with the right agency that can help you out. Of course, you can email her too. Her address is nbrune@lasvegasnevada.gov. And again, she or one of her great staff will get right back to you. Well, we want to thank you for joining us. Our next Access City Council show begins airing on December 21st with Ward 1 City Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem Brian Knutson. You can now catch all of our KCLV shows on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire, and watch for our QR code in the closing credits of this show to subscribe to our newsletter. Don't forget, you can watch us live on the internet at kclv.tv. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time around, and happy holidays.